traditional marketeers have always hidden behind this facade that, oh no, marketing is only creating a persona, rest is sales. No, mediocrity and stupidity is being normalized.
Ashish, many CEOs today lean heavily on performance marketing. Are some mistaking it for the real McCoy of what strategic marketing leadership can achieve?
We suffer from acute inferiority complex, and therefore we are ashamed of wearing Indianness even in our brands. Tell me how many great brands have Indian attributes. Brands are not noodles. Brands need time. That is somehow going out of the window because the markets are becoming hyper competitive.
Ashish, are tools like Canva and AI generators democratizing creativity or just accelerating monotony?
The funny part is people are hoping to get lucky. Nobody is hoping to get smart. Nobody is hoping to get creative. Nobody is hoping that my brand will be different. People are just hoping that, oh, my brand should pedal through, it should be fast.
Ashish, if a young founder asked you for one or two or three guiding principles to ensure their brand keeps its visual soul in this age of sameness, what would you tell them?
Let's not talk about the exceptions. You always want to copy something which is coming out of the Thai wala's country. That's where the problem
Chai wala.
lies.
Hello and welcome to this episode of the MEDIACAST Podcast from Mediabrief.com. I'm your host and friend Pavan R Chawla, and it gives me immense pleasure to bring you this, the latest episode of MEDIACAST, which features, as you know, experts who share deep insights to help professionals across media, marketing, advertising, and brand and business building. And my guest today is someone who preeminently does this wonderfully well, who has spent a young lifetime studying, shaping, and guiding the world of communication and brand storytelling. Please join me as I welcome my dear friend, Dr. Ashish R. Kaul, CEO of Folklore India, and a strategic thinker, brand advisor, and respected author and comms professional. Ashish, welcome to this episode of the MediaCast podcast.
Thank you so much, Pawan. It is always a great pleasure talking to you, and nobody makes me as nervous as you do
Oh my
always.
God. Thanks for being on the show, Ashish. And
My
I'd also like to thank two other people from your comms team who made this episode possible. And I always give credit where it's due. So one of them is Somendra Sahu, and the other is Venkatesh Somayajulu, better known as Venki of Visage or Visage 11 Communications, for making this conversation possible. So, Ashish, I have a lot of questions that will be of immense help thanks to your insights to business owners and brand custodians, right? Before we begin, please walk us through your career journey in 1 minute, okay? So far. छोटा एकदम छोटा
I
बोलना
have
है, you're an
exactly
author, you're an academic, you're a doctor, you're a communicator, but you also have a wonderful gift for brevity, right? तो छोटे में बताओ, your career journey so far, and what you're focused on professionally right now, because you're CEO of Folklore India. That's so interesting even as a name. Go ahead, your career, इतने से में इतना बड़ा करियर बताइए.
no. I mean, it is. I'll keep it shorter. I've just been a business re-engineer. Been around for about 32 years now. This is the 33rd year that I've been working. Over the years, I've led marketing, sales, comms, advocacy, crisis
याद है.
for some of the largest brands in the world, and most of the legislations, most of the stunning advocacy stories, brand representation stories, crisis stories, of last 40 years. You name them, and I would have had a finger in that.
Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. So, Ashish, I particularly, since you are a wonderful brand and business re engineer, you just said business re engineer, but today the first thing that the consumer, the end consumer, the target audience that a brand or a business wants to reach out to, what they see is the brand personality, the persona, right? And that eventually always dovetails into how well the business performs, all other things remaining equal. So, I'm concentrating on the sameness that we see in branding. For instance, it seems to be the biggest problem I see. So we are, Ashish, seeing a kind of assembly line look in branding today. Everything starts to feel like it came out of the same mold. What do you make of this sameness?
Two things, very simple. I think that is how the world is going to move, especially in the Indian context. It is the largest market the world has ever seen. You take the entire world on one hand, and India, even one fourth of that, is much larger than the biggest diverse markets in the world. It's not just the largest market; it is the most diverse, versatile, penetrative market that the world can ever see. Similarities in brand is inevitable. People call it similarities or sameness. I call it being smart. Now, having said that, I think India has always been at the wrong end of the stick. And there are these circumstances where India has always been made out as the villain, as somebody who copies, somebody who's uncouth. That may not actually be correct at all.
Ashish, are tools like Canva and AI generators democratizing creativity or just accelerating monotony? Because you see the same kind of, templates and that templated kind of thinking process. So tell me about this.
Absolutely, you've hit the hammer on the nail. So there are two things that happen. One, tools as convenience, but what happens is in today's context that I've seen is more than the convenience. People have started using them as a template. The originality, the creativity, and the smartness has suddenly gone out of the window because it is suddenly become so much easier for people to just copy and slightly tweak, as they call it. And in that's something that I don't think that is the right way to do it. Tools, yes, they make your lives easier, but then you need to have a smarter person behind that tool.
Otherwise, it is accelerating monotony.
It is accelerating.
Correct. Is it the speed to market pressure that is making designer a tick box or a checkbox activity instead of a storytelling exercise?
Very much. I think business leaders need to take the onus, and business leaders must take the fall. Because, ultimately, if you are going to leave no choice with that poor guy, what else is he going to do? So, mediocrity and stupidity is being normalized. And what is also happening is so much of chaos, and people just, the funny part is people are hoping to get lucky. Nobody is hoping to get smart. Nobody is hoping to get creative. Nobody is hoping that my brand will be different. People are just hoping that, oh, my brand should pedal through. It should be fast. People are forgetting, back in the time you and I went to the same school, nobody remembers the speed. People remember the end product. In today's time, it is being forgotten.
Excellent. I fully agree with you. But having said that, my question was, and I don't think it was a fair question because it was like one size fits all as a question. I asked whether brand storytelling is sort of not being paid attention to. But if you look at the kind of performance marketers and performance marketing in this digital age which are dominating, it's always tactical. The extreme end of that is or the cow, or the cow, or the cow. Similarly, those 10 seconders that come and go, which is cool because Amazon is a great brand, huge one, doesn't need brand awareness or brand storytelling unless it goes into something which is huge and is on the CSR side. Also, having said that, even in storytelling, etc. I do see the kind of sameness that you also agreed that, it's become a bit of a checkbox activity. And this isn't just theory, Ashish. Do you agree that we can see it in some very telling examples? I mean, when you look at skincare clones, when you look at, Ashish, fintech apps that look alike, or quick service food joints chains nearly copying logos and color IDs. Are these clever tactics or red flags for brand identity? Or would you choose to describe them as lazy or plain unprofessional shortcuts because their so called creators couldn't think of anything better? I will add one more aspect to it. Long question, short answer expected. Or is it because the client says, I want this, and the creator doesn't tell him, sir, actually, you need this. You think this is what you want. So now I've laid the background. Tell me what you think.
No, I think you all your questions are very legitimate and very relevant questions, and all of them have two answers: yes and no. And I honestly believe that ultimately it is the executive decision, which means that it is either the business leaders or the business decision. Now, first things first, that uh, you want to be different, but you don't want to plan that well. You don't want to give time because you believe that it has to be done instantly. Brands are not
Hmm.
noodles. Brands need time. That is somehow going out of the window because the markets are becoming hyper competitive. That is one. Now, entry of the tools, it is making that process easier. So it is helping you to cater to a business leader's anxiety in an efficient way. Again, two things: you have a brand that seeks differentiation, there is a different approach. But then there are, we have those cola wars also. There is a cola brand that simply replicates or has a take on what the leader does. So there are those brands who say, I am learning from the market leader, but I don't aspire to be a market leader. I know I can't be a market leader, and I am very happy with number 2, number 3, number 4 position. So very smartly he says, why do I need to do all of this? This is where I relate to, this is where my consumer lies, and so just give me a take. That's all. So I think it all boils down to what is how well do you articulate your business
Hmm.
position, and in doing so, do you see yourself by simply copying somebody else's brand and just tweaking it, and that you're done. Because India works, let's not
Hmm.
forget, unlike other markets, unlike, let's say, I hate to use the word mature because every market has its own dynamics. It is unfair to say that the West is mature and India is not, which often people throw at us. That's incorrect. Every market has a very unique
Yeah.
proposition. So, in India, as I said, there is no market in the world which is as diverse, as interdependent and competitive. So therefore, there is no that every strategy is right, every strategy is wrong. Depends on what is the vision. Nothing is wrong.
And also, if I may add, Ashish, like you mentioned, the executive decision is important. One. Secondly, the tools help you with speed to market in terms of अच्छा ये brief था जल्दी से output चाहिए. You can actually put something together. The only place I think which I could say is a bit of a weak link in the chain is the kind of creativity that is input even into that tool in terms of the thinking that goes into it. Again, I'm again oversimplifying, but I do feel, Ashish, that eventually sometimes, I mean, if you look at these two huge brands, both American brands in the fast food chain, I won't name them, it's very clear that they both look like each other in terms of the colors. And I feel that the new one that's come in India is actually mimicking the original one that came in earlier. That's why original. So, can mimicry, Ashish, help with quick adoption, or does it slowly hollow out a brand's credibility?
So, Pawan, how it works is, again, we come back to the main question that your business is sorted, you know what you're
Hmm.
doing. Even if the strategy is to, ultimately in business, what do you want? You want it to succeed. How will it succeed? It has to connect. No brand ever works if it does not find the right audience. It has to find a consumption pattern, it has to find a consumer. If mimicking is the way, so be it. But when I'm saying mimicking and so be it, it does not mean it has to be illegal. So as long as you're smart, if you are smart, why should it be uncouth? as long as it is within the law and you are not bordering into, let's say, slander, or sort of doing it in a very unprofessional way. If you have a smart way around it, in Pavan, in
Hmm.
Bombay, the most popular biryani wala is called BBC. Now tell me.
Okay.
No, it is BBC. It is BBC. Should it be? Should the Almighties at BBC have a problem with Borivali Biryani Center? So, would you call it smart, being on the smarter side, or is it illegal?
But I was just thinking, what you asked me, perfectly legitimate question about will the BBC get hassled about the Borivali Biryani Center calling itself BBC? If they wanted to, they might force BBC of Borivali to add something else, because otherwise those three letters are a word mark that BBC registered many years ago.
So there are those permutations and combinations, but unfortunately, to answer one more question that you probably is related to this, is that somehow in all of this brand story, India is always positioned very
Hmm.
poorly, and most often by these huge arm twisting brands who sort of they put that in your face that you are wrong.
Hmm.
And in most of the cases, my opinion has been, from the law perspective, that they are wrong.
Okay.
So, Pawan, specifically on this issue of chicken, it reminds me of so many brand conflicts that have. One of them is this Nashville fried chicken, and the similarity with Kentucky fried chickens and all of the world. I think you will see a problem with the international brands. So whenever they feel threatened by a local brand, they try and misinterpret the law. Now, for example, in this chicken category, you have this issue of fried chicken. Somebody tried to bulldoze India by saying that, no, I want to brand fried chicken. You can't use. I mean, it is ridiculous. It's a joke. Can you do that? No, no generic term can be copyrighted. That's it. But it is the way these vested interests, the way they sort of misinterpret the law, and unfortunately the brand owner doesn't know. Now, in the right senses, what has, for example, a Nashville got to do with Kentucky? There are those colors: red, green, blue, yellow, brown, whatever. You will find those similarities. Nashville is Nashville, KFC is KFC, DFC is DFC. In Saudi, there is a popular brand called Albak. It almost copies KFC. Will KFC have the courage of taking a Saudi company to the task, or even raising it with them? They'll throw them out of Saudi. It only happens in India.
I think the brands that really want to rush to market, they will need the kind of thinking and advice that you, with as CEO of Folklore India, can provide them. Uh, Also, Ashish, to extend the earlier one, however, isn't the visual mimicry or aping? I am talking about those two, for instance, fast food, chicken kind of American QSR chains that came into India, and the second one is looking exactly like the earlier one in the red and white and all of that. Now, that really is visual mimicry or aping. Isn't that crushing whatever unique differentiators might have been embedded into a new same category brand's inherent offerings? They look the same, for God's sake. So, what's new?
I have two different views on
Hmm.
this one. Brand, there are two
Hmm.
parts to it. The product experience is one part of it, and how do you symbolize that is entirely other
Correct.
part of it. Now, both of them are governed by two different sets of laws universally. Unfortunately, in India, you will always see one thing goes over the other. Visual identity, the way a brand is drawn, let's say the calligraphy of the brand or the visual representation of the brand, is represented differently in letter, spirit, law, in every which
Hmm.
way. But the product in itself, if your product is well ideated, it has a sound business
Hmm.
plan, tell me, does BMW or any of those legacy brands, where do they stand? Is it because of the logo or because of the product? Logo is only a differentiator. But tell me, if there was somebody else who would come up with a BMW and be calling it BMW, would it actually mean that he has a product like that, or would the consumers know that this is not that particular product? Most of the times what happens is that, for example, in Delhi, or in Bombay, in Bombay it will be something else. Let's, for example, in Delhi, 99% of Delhi's non-vegetarian food is fried chicken. So are you going to tell me that you can, by any stretch of imagination, brand that? It already is. The product is the brand. But in most of the cases, you will always see a Firang brand, a foreign brand, trying to arm twist a local brand and trying to tell him that no, you're wrong. There are those cases that have happened, but it is so funny. And most of the times what happens is the is law is one thing and justice is another. Most of the times law plays into the hands of these Firang companies for the lack of understanding by the brand owner himself. The poor brand owner doesn't know the difference between the similarity part that is governed by one part of the law and the product, which is entirely different matter
Yeah,
altogether.
and that hunger for off brands rather to quickly try and register something which is universal, like you said, the kind of non-vegetarian fried chicken that you get in Delhi.
Yeah.
Okay, it reminds me of one major entertainment network. I won't name it. Tried to go and register the name of Antakshari as a word, for God's sake. It was completely dismissed, but nevertheless, uh, no harm in trying always. You love your brand, you love your
No
business,
harm
and you
in
should
trying.
go. Are we all just living in a Canva world now? Because, oh, it's okay to do this. Eventually, we want to get people into the business premises. It's like a call to action, come sample us. And when they come there, you say that, yeah, this is the kind of experience, and you've entered actually a BMW, not a BMW. You know what I mean? So I completely
Yeah.
believe and agree with what you're saying. But still, when you look at the thousands of young agencies, brand consultants, freelance marketing heads, and God bless them, because even the worst book is the author's best effort, and I'm not calling them bad at all. All I'm saying is they do tend to go and say, okay, client ne bola ye chahiye to yahi dena hai. So are we all just living in a Canva world now?
See, every world is different, Pavan. Every world has its own nuances. Back in the time when this did not exist, that was a different world. Now this is the Canva world, or the world that is driven by technology. Technology comes with an advantage. It How will technology help you? It'll give you a template. That's the only way a technology can help you. It'll give you a template. Now, how to deploy that technology is human skill. Ultimately, human skill can never be replaced. The problem is, nobody spends time in understanding technology. You are always in a rush in utilizing technology, and therefore you're not able to make the right use of technology. It is not that in technology you will only get a template. No, you can do great work by using technology. The problem is you don't want to spend time in learning that. Maybe you have understood, or maybe you've taken it for granted that, if I spend, let's say, 30 days in understanding this, maybe in 30 days I'll become outdated. But that is how this is how the world is, and you can't be left behind. You can't be left behind.
Well said, and really answers my question beautifully. I mean, it was an open ended thing, and you've really come and balanced it very nicely. And I'm sure that when you go out and meet brand heads and business heads and brand custodians and business promoters, you will really empower them. And we'll come to that in a bit. But what it reminds me of is what my dear friend, one of India's best designers called Shamshad, he tells me when I told him कि शमशाद यार आजकल तो ये सब कैनवा पे हो रहा है, and I also use Canva. We do use it. It's a beautiful thing, and it depends on how you use it because it saves a lot of time. But he's still one, Adobe Photoshop freak, and I always believe in it. Adobe Photoshop is what it is. It's amazing, right? So is Canva. Depends on what I have the time for and what I can
Absolutely.
do. But what Shamshad said was, "Sir, chodo na. Canva to 2 minute noodle hai. Photoshop is the best biryani." We'll leave it at that. We'll leave it at that. But if visuals are blending into each other, Ashish, then maybe. originality has to live somewhere else and visuals are converging. So, what should brands lean on for originality? The product, the story, or the culture around them?
See, Pawan, I think it has always been like that. It is just that we live in a technically savvier, smarter universe. We come to know of these things. Designs are always inspired. Designs are always inspired. That is one, that is granted. Two, designs could be inspired by somebody else's design or by the attributes of your product. That's where the game lies. Most of us don't know the difference or ignore the difference. I will create a brand identity basis the experience, basis my product, and it will, I assure you, it will be different. Even if I use a template, it will be different. The problem is I somehow ignore, if I ignore that, how will my brand look like, and I focus on creating a brand by copying somebody else. That is a different matter altogether.
It will also promise something else and deliver something else, perhaps. And that's not good for the
Yes.
consumer who looks at your messaging and forms an opinion.
Even in a world driven by machines, even in a world driven by, I hate to call it artificial intelligence, in a world driven by alternate intelligence, nothing can beat human intelligence, because there are certain things only a human being knows without saying. It is only a human being who says something but means something else.
Right.
So you need to know what are you trying to create. If your product, ultimately there is no bigger brand than your own product. Ultimately it is, you just create a visual to that. But most of the times, the problem is because we blame technology, but that's not correct at all.
Right. Ashish, you mentioned the word design. Now, when I think of this beautiful name you've got of your company and your consultancy called Folklore India, right? Do you feel Indian design traditions and typography are being sidelined in favor of safer, globalized palettes and styles?
Absolutely. There is no doubt about it. We suffer from acute inferiority complex, and therefore we are ashamed of wearing Indianness even in our brands. Tell me how many great brands have Indian attributes. Let's not talk about the exceptions. You always want to copy something which is coming out of the Taiwala's country. That's where the problem
Kaiwala.
lies.
Yeah. I completely agree with you. But then you can still keep the essence of the traditional kind of approach, which is beautiful and always gels immediately and instantly with everybody, and still go ahead and bring out something which is very, very modern also. So yeah.
See, ultimately, it's pretty simple.
Mm,
You have a product,
mm,
you need people to consume the product.
correct.
Find the right fitment,
Mm,
whether it is local, national, or
mm.
international. That is that simple.
Right. Absolutely, absolutely. What does originality mean, Ashish, when copy paste has become normalized? Is it now about who and how you copy better or something deeper?
Is it, again, I differentiate whether it is the product that you're talking about, me trying to create a
No,
successful
no, no. The
product,
brand
or
communication, the initial first part,
the brand,
the
the
visual
visual part of it.
attributes and the
See,
logos and
again,
everything else.
depends. I could be smart about it, and I could simply be
Hmm.
lazy. Depends where you fall. Ultimately, it is the product experience that will determine success and failure.
Okay.
No matter how smart you are, if your product is not carrying the attributes of what you promised through a visual, it is going to fail. It is going to blast in your face.
Agreed. At the same time, uh, sometimes the sameness can even trigger curiosity. अरे यार,
Yes, which is why you want sameness. You want the process. See, ultimately, as I said, business is about speed at which you can reach a consumer and make the consumer consume the product.
wonderful.
So, if that is the way within the ambit of the law, so be it.
This is the MediaCast Podcast. I'm Pavan R Chawla. With me is Dr. Ashish Kaul, CEO of Folklore India. Short answer, Ashish, to what advice would you give business owners and promoters? What kind of brand custodianship and marketing do they really need to empower their brands and businesses?
See, we at Folklore, we have always championed that the product is your brand. Everything else is secondary, makes the consumption easier, faster. So, bringing that understanding is what Folklore was created for in telling the brand owners, in telling the consumers and the business leaders that first and foremost, your product is the brand.
Wonderful, wonderful, Ashish. That's a lovely way of looking at it. More strength to you and Folklore India in helping to empower Indian brands. Ashish, many CEOs today lean heavily on performance marketing. Are some mistaking it for the real McCoy of what strategic marketing leadership can achieve?
Yes and no. You see, performance marketing somehow needs to be understood. The way I look at performance marketing is the bang for the buck. This is a concept that is a recent entrant, and essentially you will see the best examples in real estate. It's a very complex, very hyper local business, yet attracts tremendous attention and monies. You would have heard of these scary stories out of Gurgaon, flats costing 50 crores, 100 crores, and they talk about it as if they were having vada pav. So the advantage that performance marketing is mathematical. Now that is something that a traditional marketer has always evaded, unfortunately. Traditional marketeers have always hidden behind this facade that, oh no, marketing is only creating a persona, rest is sales. No, unless marketing works, there cannot be any sale. There is no sale without marketing. So, marketing does not mean only creating a persona. Marketing means quantifying that whatever persona you have created, it works. The only proof that your marketing works, what does it mean? It means that whatever you ideated is fit for the consumers, and consumers have demonstrated that by consuming the product.
Therefore, a performance marketer is critical and essential at the stage in
Absolutely.
which in the funnel that he or she works. But today I also know that some major companies, when the CMOs moved out, they said, okay, I don't need a full high paying CMO. Let me take four of the lower paid performance marketers and let them report directly to the CEO. We won't go there. There are positives and negatives, but I do still, my heart beats for good, solid, evolved strategy from a really evolved and experienced
Yeah.
marketer. Hey, I'm Pavan R Chawla on MediaCast Podcast. With me is Dr. Ashish Kaul, CEO of Folklore India. Ashish, you're now an independent professional available to discerning and needy brands that are seeking empowerment. Why should they come to Folklore India, and what unique value do you bring to the table?
Pavan, what folklore does is the way it was constructed was to bring both the worlds together. Sales and marketing, they don't exist without each other. The kind of marketing we do is sales oriented. So we create a product and find the consumer and ensure sales happen, nothing else.
Wonderful, wonderful. More strength to you, Ashish, and to Folklore India. Ashish, if a young founder asked you for one or two or three guiding principles to ensure their brand keeps its visual soul in this age of sameness, what would you tell them?
First and foremost, Pawan, I will first understand what is his business vision. How much of a hurry is he in? If he wants to build a business for the long term basis, if it's a legacy business, my advice would be different. If he wants to be in a business which is rather more instant, intense, and fast moving, my advice would be entirely different. And I would not be against sameness, depending on if it complements the vision of the business owner.
Ashish, I have really enjoyed my conversation. Thank you very much for sharing such thoughtful insights on a subject that is truly vexing brand promoters and their marketing custodians. The plague of sameness. these insights will help all marketers, brand custodians in the making, and business custodians who are looking for better advice. And I'm sure that you, as CEO of Folklore India, and your team will give them. So I've genuinely enjoyed this conversation with you, Ashish. Your insights will help professionals across the spectrum of
Thank you, Pawan.
sectors and functions. What did you think of our conversation, and what do you think about the MediaCast podcast series and what MediaBrief.com does for and with professionals?
Pawan, no matter what I say, is not never going to do justice to what you do, and it mostly stems from the kind of person you are, the kind of values that you represent, the kind of experience you have. There's a lot of hard work that goes behind that smiling face of yours. One would have never seen that stress on your face. It comes with tremendous hard work, legacy, values, grinding, the kind of people that you work with. And of course, one does see a reflection of everything that you do, MediaCast included.
You're very kind. My God. Ashish, thank you once again for your time, your insights, and your very generous assessment of what Media Brief and Mediacast and I try to do. I think it also stems from the fact that you and I go back very, very many years, decades, and I've never had anything but a lot of reward and good feeling, the positivity that I've always come back with after speaking with you. So that has remained, and I reciprocate your
Thank you,
thoughts.
Pawan.
Thank you very much, and I hope and I'm sure you'll do fantastic work with Folklore India.
Thank you, Pawan. Thank you so much.
So that brings us to the end of this episode of MediaCast Podcast, the series from Mediabrief.com. I'm Pavan R Chawla. Thank you for joining us. I really found the views and insights that Dr. Ashish Kaul, CEO of Folklore India, expressed and shared, and I'm sure you did too. Until next time, stay healthy, stay safe, and keep building brands that matter. Bye bye.